I was going to get hit with a $30,000 tariff bill for $10,000 order of moss. So what we are dealing with as small business owners, it is impossible to plan. It is impossible to budget. But when you look at small mom and pop pet shops, dude, that rely on the Central Pet Hagen business model, that they just go on these websites, order all the reptile supplies that those websites carry, and that's how they stock their store. Like, you know what I'm talking about. You go into most pet stores, it's all the same stuff.
Yeah.
Those are the businesses that die. Yeah, dude. And then during all of this time, I was close to bringing on a business partner. I'm gonna be honest, bro. This guy I've known for 14 years. Had him at my house, staying with my house, meeting all my staff, spending time with my daughter, who's 4.5. And then I get a call one day. This guy was arrested for.
Oh my gosh. Today is an incredible story of perseverance, dedication, and commitment to staying true to a mission statement. Today, I'm joined by Josh Halter of the Bio Dude. We had Josh on the podcast back in 2019. I don't know what episode number that was, but it was probably in the 20s or the 30s. And today is episode number 234. So a lot has changed for both Josh and I. But in this episode, Josh walks us through the trials and tribulations of being a small business owner. We discuss COVID and how difficult and incredible the challenges were during that time. And then the second half of the conversation is more focused on the tariff issues or the tariff regulations that the United States are facing now, and how a business that essentially operates on importing goods from other countries can possibly survive in this tariff environment. Josh talks about some amazing business innovations that he's going to implement to solve some of these problems, but also some of the unsolvable problems. Like, we eventually will in North America not have access to UVB lighting and LEDs, things that are not being manufactured here that just will only ever be manufactured overseas. So it is a fascinating conversation. Every time Josh talks about another problem, your jaw will hit the floor because you just can't believe that behind the crisp, clean website of the Bio Dude is this a million different problems that you would never know as a consumer. So if you want to have respect for the people that are doing the hard work so that you and I can just instantly go consume a product, then this is an episode that you'll want to listen to, and you'll have a high respect for Josh and his staff after listening to this. There's twists and turns throughout this entire episode. So I won't say anything more. Let's jump into the episode. Thank you very much for Josh for jumping on the show and being a supporter of the podcast, and I'll catch you guys afterwards. Did you know that in a couple of years, ZooMed Laboratories will have been an active business for 50 years in the reptile and exotic pet keeping community? That is incredible. The only way a small family-run business can actually last that long is if they're doing something right. That's why it's absolutely no surprise to me that ZooMed is offering a bunch of free resources for you and me to help us be better keepers. Later on in this episode, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about ZooMed's university, as well as the ZooMed Education Center on their website. This podcast is all about improving your reptile husbandry. However, I know not everybody has the time or the money to go out and spend thousands of dollars doing custom builds. Thankfully, friend of the podcast, Josh Halter, aka the Bio Dude, is working hard to make better care more accessible. He makes turnkey bioactive kits for leopard geckos, ball pythons, tortoises, invertebrates, dart frogs, and the list continues to grow. He has spent years testing and perfecting these handcrafted substrates and dietary supplements to create the most effective products. If you visit thebiodude.com, you will see he is a proud supporter of both USARK and responsible reptile keeping, and there is an option to donate to either at checkout. Awesome. Well, Josh, welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for returning and being a big supporter of the show. I really appreciate that. Looking forward to chatting again.
Likewise, Dylan. Thanks for having me. I think it's remarkable that it's literally been 6 years since I was last on here. And I think when I spoke to you, I was in my old little building in a little tiny square room with a little tiny air conditioner. And now
were you in Texas at that time already, though?
Yeah. I was still in Texas. I started Bio Dude in Texas. So yeah, I was that was a really long time ago, and a lot's happened. But I think what's amazing is to see your growth, your channel's growth, and how you've been able to create and reinforce different types of relationships with different people in our community to help create a sustainable mission that your channel follows. And that's really admirable. And it's really awesome that you've been able to continue to do it after all these years. So kudos to you, bro.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. And yeah, likewise to you. And yeah, we're both dads now since the last time we had you on the show. So
yeah,
lots has definitely changed.
Oh my God, that's right. My life was simple then.
Yeah,
simple.
Those are the easy days.
Yeah, now you have two, right?
Two, yes. Yeah,
oh my God,
I'm 1 month into two.
Is it two girls?
Two boys, two boys.
Two boys. I knew it was one of the. I apologize.
Yeah, yeah.
So at least you're not outnumbered in your house.
No, no. And we didn't have to
It's
race
three.
out and
It's
buy a
three
bunch
to
of new
one. It's three to
Yeah.
one. I am 2 to 1, and I always lose.
Yeah,
So
yeah. You're
that's
going to be
okay
outnumbered
though.
forever.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, before we jump into things, I know you just came back from, I think, a family trip to Costa Rica.
Did
I'd love
yeah.
to get some like bullet points on that because Costa
Oh
Rica, I
man.
love Costa Rica. It's one of my favorite places. And
Those-
did you have a great time?
Thanks for asking. And yeah, it was an experience I'll remember forever. Primarily just like I love sharing what I like to do with my girls. And taking Carolyn into the rainforest. We found eyelash vipers. We found a whole bunch of different frogs. We saw sloths, different species of monkeys. We went on a riverboat tour and I saw like black hawk eagles. I saw tons of different kingfishers and I saw capuchin monkeys and howler monkeys. And um, Costa Rica is so ecologically diverse and it was just such an amazing experience to be able to share that with them and just be able to get to go and just be there. The time of year that we went, it was considered the rainy season, so it
Yeah.
rained every day at 4 o'clock. It rained from 4 o'clock until the morning. And where we stayed was right under the Arenal volcano. So all the natural hot springs were there. So like we were just chilling in the natural hot springs, and then it would start raining cold water, and
Mm.
it was just yeah. And lots of good stuff to be able just to kind of hang out. And every time I leave the United States and I go to Central America, I'm quickly reminded the quality of United States food versus like Central America food and like how I can eat a whole plate of fruit for breakfast and be satiated for until lunchtime. Whereas I do that here, that my metabolism that doesn't work. So, it was a great experience. Well, I'm going to be uploading a YouTube video in a couple weeks. I documented almost everything we did. And I uploaded a bunch of pictures too with my camera. So if anybody's interested in checking that out, we posted it, excuse me, on my business Facebook, Instagram, and it'll be up on YouTube soon.
Cool. Yeah. Well, that sounds awesome. Like Costa Rica is such a great place to go for anybody that wants to experience the rainforest, the jungle, all the diversity. Like it doesn't get better. If you're somebody that wants to be like a backpacker, like way out in the jungle for super cheap, you could probably do something in South America. But if you're somebody that still wants to have like a nice meal and you want to stay in a nicer hotel with your family and you're willing to spend a little extra, it's fairly Americanized. You can use the American dollar, but you still get all those like
Yep.
jungle experiences. Like any more jungle experiences than you need are all there.
Oh, yeah. When my wife and I did the night hike, it was raining so hard you couldn't see 15 feet in front of us.
Oh my god.
And it was pretty intense, but I saw animals that I've been working with in my career for many years, like in situ, breeding, laying eggs, seeing vipers in the middle of a monsoon out trying to catch the frogs that are hopping around, like going to vernal pools and seeing all the different critters congregate together. There are aquatic crabs on the ground, and then there's reed frogs on the closest level above the water and in plexus laying eggs. Then there's glass frogs at the next level, calling and going crazy. And then above all of them are red eyes,
Mm.
just going absolutely bonkers with this like crazy rainstorm. D did okay, but about 50 minutes into it, we started getting a little bit of lightning, and the lady behind us was using an umbrella, and she kept getting right next to my wife. And my wife was like, "Can you please get away from me? You are literally holding a lightning rod.
Yeah.
You're in a thunderstorm. Please go away." But other than that, dude, it was like that was besides the hanging bridges and taking Carolyn on the hanging bridges. I would say the night hike was probably one of my favorite excursions we got to do, with the exception of just, being with my girls and hanging out. So it was a good
That's
time.
awesome. Cool. Very good. I'm glad you're able to do that and get away. So I think most people are familiar with Bio Dude. I think one point that I want to make is that I think because in the West, we're so used to, you see a brand, and if you see a familiar brand, you think of it as like a conglomerate or a huge corporate structure. And I love brands like yourself, where it's like it's you and an amazing team. It's not like this massive thing. So, but I think because the website looks professional and people are used to seeing Bio Dude, it probably tricks people into thinking it's a much bigger operation than it really is. Can you give people kind of just a rundown of the operation that you guys have and the products that you have, just for somebody that may not be super familiar with it?
Of course, I'll give you a quick appreciate that. Definitely not run by venture capitalists. It's just me. But I am a
Yeah.
very money driven or person, but I'm also like ethics driven. That has been Bio Dude's mission statement essentially is to, as a brand, our responsibility is to recommend the best care rather than basic care using research driven practices and techniques. And the practices and techniques essentially goes into what goes into product creation, product marketing. So we're being honest on our label as much as we can. And when I say as much as we can, like, not giving out trade secrets. Like I don't tell people like this is how I make what I do. So, and then we also try to make sure that we make it as easy and seamless for the guy who just bought his 14-year-old a bearded dragon or his 7-year-old a bearded dragon. And most of those people to set up their animals ethically, it's hard for them because they want to go to PetSmart and buy the bearded dragon kit that has desert sand, a fake cactus, a water bowl, a coil UVB bulb, and a red heat bulb.
Mm.
All of those boxes that we checked are garbage, not good, right? It's not good for the well-being of the animal, doesn't nurture instincts, right? So our whole foundation here of what made us successful is we try to push outside that scope and try to use education as our backbone so people understand that you're catering to a wild animal, not a domesticated animal. And it's your ethical responsibility as a keeper to nurture those wild instincts and to keep them like a wild animal. Just because leopard geckos are bred in the United States on a crazy commercial scale, same thing with bearded dragons and crested geckos, they still have those little wild niches, little wild instincts. It's not something that goes away. It's kind of like a dog. Dogs also still carry some residual wild instincts to them, and especially cats. So that same principle applies to reptiles in captivity. And that's essentially, by offering really good handcrafted, handmade, pasteurized ingredients, substrates, ethically sourced plants, ethically sourced leaves that we get specifically from other countries that have come sterilized, come pasteurized. So we're not selling people leaves that have ant eggs in them. We know we're taking what I've been trying to do these past couple years is make sure the brand doesn't have that garage feel. And when I say a garage feel, that we are innovating on the level that it's the best quality you can get. If you like the first time that you and I had a discussion, I said I always wanted to be the Cadillac of the industry. I never wanted to be the Kia. I never wanted to be the Hyundai. Not that there's anything wrong with that. There's always a place in our industry for more, I'm going to say more affordable, but entry level products, right? But our goal is that reptile keeping isn't a budget hobby. Reptile keeping isn't cheap. It shouldn't be cheap. These are unique animals with unique needs, unique specialties, unique adaptations. So it's important that if you're going to have them, that the resources are available to you to properly do that. And I think with my blog, which I think it's one of the largest in our industry. I don't know. I'm very proud of it with what we have. Our YouTube channel and some of the influencers we get to work with. We get to work with you on a professional level, which has been great. We get to work with Bill Strand, who is like the godfather of chameleons in the United States. We get to work with Tarantula Collective, which Richard has been doing great things for the tarantula community, not only in the form of education, but in the form of putting accurate information out there. And making sure that we partner with like-minded people has been part of my formula at BioDude to make sure that we are taking an ethical stance of what we're doing, making sure that, we are, what's the word I'm looking for, that we're just doing it the right way in my mind, we're doing it the right way, while, still treating it like a business.
Mhm.
And obviously, when you have a business, there's always forks in the road. Nothing ever goes to plan. And boy, can I tell you, there's been a lot of lessons learned since we last had a conversation. But there's also those lessons have really changed me as a person, changed me as an entrepreneur, and really helped me realize what is actually what you need to really stress out about, what's in your control versus like what isn't, and how to adapt with those types of things.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
that's amazing, and I think speaking of challenges, we're meeting. Wanted to talk about a main challenge that you guys are dealing with now, but since it's been 5 or 6 years, you also had a massive an initial challenge, basically right off after we got off the first podcast, maybe like 6 months later, or whatever. Of course, everybody remembers COVID. So, in you
Oh,
as you mentioned, you were in a different building, so you were in a smaller location, and since then you had to deal with the craziness of COVID, but you've also managed to upgrade into a much larger space. So this is kind of a
yeah, of
multi-part question. I'd love to know, like, tell us about the space you're in now, the store it is, like how much of an upgrade that is, but
course.
how much of a challenge were those years during COVID, and did you have to do some things to keep afloat?
Yeah, so I love looking at my entrepreneurial with Bio Dude because I've been through COVID. I've been through a lot of different things. But to answer your question, like when I first started, like we had three commercial spaces that were attached to each other that were 1,000 square feet apiece. I outgrew those in under a year. And then at that point I was just like, this isn't economical, and I still had 18 months left on my lease, and that rent per unit was $1,100 a month for three of them. So I had to be able to fork out the money to break the lease to pay off, because it was when you have a lease, you are signing for the total value of that lease. You can't just be like, I'm done, I'm not paying the rest of it.
So you had to
And when
cover the 18 months worth of
I had to
lease that you
cover
weren't going to
18
use.
months worth of rent to be
Wow.
able to get out, which sucked. And then, and able to buy the building I'm in now. you know, Most commercial buildings are triple net, which means you're paying property taxes, you're paying repairs, you're paying the insurance, you're paying for everything. The landlord just gets a nice cushion on his balance sheet, doesn't do anything for your business. You don't get depreciation. It's a giant scam, if you ask me. So I said, I'm going to buy my building. So I found a building that was right up the road. This building's about a little under 8,000 square feet. I got this building for around 610,000. And then about 9 months ago, I got a letter from my bank stating that they were raising my interest rate from 4% to 8.5%.
Oh my
Now,
gosh.
during these 5 years, I signed up for what I thought was like a fixed interest SBA loan. So when I saw fixed interest, I thought, okay, I'm going to be locked in at this 4% rate. One of my biggest things that I learned with commercial is that just because it says fixed doesn't mean your interest is going to change in your interest is going to change in 5 years to the market value. So all the interest I paid off on this building, they tacked more of it back on plus 10%. So I only ended up paying off $20,000 of the base on that loan in 5 years. And we still owed $560,000. I was like, this is not going to work for me. I will be trapped in this forever. I won't be able to grow. So that before all the nonsense kicked in recently, my wife and I made the decision to pull some money out of the Bio Dude savings, and we just paid this building off. So that was probably one of the biggest accomplishments of my career, was getting my building that I'm in right now completely paid off.
That is
And
unbelievable.
during Corona, it was right when I moved in here too.
What
So
year did you
like
get this building?
I got this building in 2019
Okay, so
in
right at the
November.
cusp.
So
Yeah,
it was
okay.
literally right when everything was going crazy. I remember, like, I'm not even gonna get into the repairs I had to do, but we finally got in, we finally got settled, and like I get a call from one of my suppliers in Canada, and he goes, "You're not gonna be able to get peat." And peat moss is one of the ingredients that I use to be able to create some of my products. And he was just like, look, man, he goes, I'm going to be honest with you. He's like, you're looking at your price going from about $12 to $15 for your bale to probably about $40 to $50. And then I got then in the same week, my plant distributor in Florida that I work with, a special company that finds me specific greenhouses that cater to my niche needs.
Mhm.
So like I use essentially a second party to help me source the quality and standard I need to be able to offer what's safe in the terrarium, right? So they told me they're like most of these greenhouses right now are completely down. Like they're not working. You're not going to really be able to get plants. And then during that time, besides the peat and then the plants, we, how do I say this? Um, Due to lack of oversight on my part, we got some snakes in from somebody that we were quarantining, but we didn't quarantine them correctly, and I had a mite outbreak.
Mhm.
And my entire showroom with that I just completely built, completely put together animals for sale. We're talking 40 habitats. I'd gut all of them, throw everything away, disinfect everything.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that was an absolute backbreaker. On top of, at that point, then nobody was really spending any money because this was before the Corona stimulus. So I was watching my gross margin just shrink consecutively with all the increases of price, lack of being able to get anything, and now having to invest in a whole bunch of PPE, which now during this time it was hot and having to manufacture in my warehouse gets like 90 degrees in there. And having associates wear masks in a 90-degree warehouse is pretty damn hard, right?
Yeah.
So we ran into significant challenges with that, with making sure the employees were protected. We had to stop doing trade shows pretty much entirely during that time. But what it allowed me to do was really look at my processes with where we were really weak. And then the boom came. Americans got giant stimulus checks, and then I quadrupled in 2 weeks. And that's when I really started freaking out because I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm going to completely run out of peat. I'm not going to be able to get it. I'm not going to be able to get some of my cypress. I'm not going to be able to get plants. Like 80% of my website's going to go dark. And then I was able to find a guy that I still use today in Houston that helps broker things from other countries too. And he was able to help find me some sustainably sourced ingredients from some of the stuff that I needed. And then that is what ended up getting us through. I can tell you, like, there was a couple times when I probably made some decisions during that peak time of like ascertaining plants from growers that I probably shouldn't have. I'll just put that out there. It's a mistake I made, and it's been put out there before. And we ended up, making sure that everything was right with that. But like, it was like you were backed into a corner, and it was really hard to be able to handle the demand because when the demand came, my processes they weren't that great yet because I was still getting
Yes.
established in this building. I was cleaning up after the mites. I was dealing with an associate who was just not tried to do a lot of damage to us after the fact of departure. So it was just a lot of things that I had my hands into that I was trying to like get through. But the best thing that happened from Corona was it exposed my weaknesses. And that growth actually hurt my business. It hurt us because we were not prepared for it. So my turnaround time went from 1.5 days to 4 for
Mm.
orders. Our quality of our plants, we are known for big quality plants, good root systems, large plants, not $7 for a 4-inch plant like a lot of other vendors will do. And that's something that, that I was really able to look at and be like, okay, man, like, let's have some accountability here. Why did this growth hurt Bio Dude and not benefit us? And it was primarily because of lack of standard operating procedures, lack of training for staff, lack of accountability on my end, right? So that's when I was really able to look in the mirror and just be like, okay, dude, grow up. Let's get this where we need to be. And that's when I really got on my horse and started doing a lot of like listening, reading a lot of entrepreneurial books here at work, and just talking to a lot of people that I looked at for support, like Robin at Redline Shipping. Been talking to him since I started the dude, Rich at Reptile Basics. talking to obviously my wife, and just like understanding like what was important to me with my mission statement and how to not make sure I ever deviate from that, no matter what the cost is going to be.
Mm.
And ever since I had that realization about 5 years ago, give or take, 4 years, 4.5 years ago, it has been, I don't know if it's that long ago. My brain isn't the best when it comes to timing, but it's really benefited me and my business because we were able to get the warehouse entirely barcoded and ready for scanners. We were able to create a better system for purchase orders to track inventory. We had better methods of picking kits and accountability for time and attendance, and all of those things. We just really put the hammer down, sent a lot of my staff to continuing education. Like my HR manager, for example, got her signed up for a whole bunch of classes so that way she could bring more to the table to make sure our employees feel heard. But during all of that time, that's when I was able to get health insurance for the staff, life insurance, dental insurance, paid holidays, 401k with maximum matching. Like that is, if I look at like paying off my building and all the other stuff I've done, like it's really hard to put all the benefits for the size business that I offer up under that because it's not easy to be able to have, the amount of employees I do and still offer the coverage for health insurance that we offer, 401k that we all like all that stuff. So, um, I guess to answer, I kind of went off on a tangent there, dude, but honestly, like, you know, I had some really challenging situations that felt like I was backed into a corner and everything was just going to fail. And instead of just like giving up, I was just like, no, I'm going to grab it by the horns and I'm going to fix it.
Yeah.
I've had people try to actively sabotage like my business and try to do serious damage to us and like other things like that. And we just were like, whatever, I'm here, I'm going to do what I need to do, and I'm going to, you know, make sure that we continue to grow and do what we need to do. And I look at my business like now, and I like every year, one, how I know I'm making a difference as an owner and also in the industry is if I can look back a year and I'm able to put at least 12 things on a piece of paper that we implemented that made a positive difference. Now, positive difference can be a change in revenue stream. It can be relationships, whether if it's with a collaborator or with an influencer. Is it the well-being of our breeding programs and how well are they being executed and how well is our retainment after that animal is sold? Are we still getting engagement from those customers? Are they still communicating with us about those animals? Um, and making sure that we're getting our products, that we are setting up our clients for success with minimal chance of failure. Because the majority of my clients, I have been 50-50 since 2017. 50% new, 50% returning.
Mm.
That metric has barely ever changed. And that's a metric I am darn proud of. But it really allows me to fully understand what we're doing well. Because if we're bringing in, for example, if I'm selling leaf litter, and like when I first started, I didn't have any warning labels on my leaf litter to tell people to boil and disinfect the leaves. So we would get clients that get a big thing of leaf litter, and 2 weeks later they have ants in their habitat. And I'm like, well, damn, that's on me for not telling them and X, Y, and Z that you have to take these preventative steps. Now we offer leaves that are pasteurized and guaranteed, imported from Colombia. Nobody else does that. Nobody else has anything to the size and value that I have. There are other smaller leaves and other things like that, but those are the types of things that we did to make sure that we're setting up our customers as much for success as possible. Um, we had a guy come in last week. He wanted to put a dart frog. He wanted to get some dart frogs from us and put them in a screen cage. And we're like,
Mm.
no, we're not going to do that, man. Like, this is the setup you need. And the 5-year-old daughter is like crying and flipping out. He goes, I just want a frog for my daughter. I don't understand. And then he called one of my staff members a slur. And I was like, you need to leave. I wasn't here. They said you need to leave. And then I get a 1-star review on Google of how terrible of people we are. But at the end of the day, like, we're not going to sell you an animal that we know is going to fail. Like, I'm not going to set you up for failure, and let alone I'm not going to set up a 5-year-old girl to fail. Like, that's not
Yeah.
who we are. And that stance that we are taking, that we took with that client, just in general, is the same standard that we have put across everything we do here. And that's kind of, our culture of accountability, with our culture of, making sure that we have quality that aligns with our mission statement, is something that all of my staff share. And that's where I've been really grateful, is that, I'm the owner. So I work on my business, I don't work in it. So
Mhm.
like, you don't see me filling orders, you don't see me working in manufacturing. I'm in my office trying to come up with products, trying to simplify workflows,
And
try
that's
doing
actually a
the right thing.
hard thing to do as a leader, to not work in your business, because
Yeah, it
and
sucks
that's what
because
you get stuck because you're trying to fill orders yourself, but and
yeah,
you want to help your team as well, but it's not the right thing to do.
100. Yeah, and helping your team comes in the aspect of communication, um, accountability, both positive and negative, and of course, your operating procedures.
Hmm.
And making sure that you have a strong foundation with how you do what you do. How do you make that job as easy as possible? Take as much guesswork out as possible. That makes training easier. That makes everything easier. And then when you start focusing on those little things, the puzzle pieces just kind of fall into place. And the one girl, Christina, Christina worked for me for 6 years, and she just left because she moved up to Illinois. Absolutely broke my heart, but she was able to use all of the experiences that she got here, the education she got here, the CE, all that stuff, to get a really good job for where she's moving to. And that's not the first associate here that's been able to do that. So, like, that is another way as an owner that I know that the work that I'm putting in the back end has made a difference.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the people that either they choose to leave or they leave because they're moving away, which, that happens, that they were able to utilize the assets that I provided here to leverage another, if not better, opportunity for them elsewhere. And to me, that's a big deal, to be able to offer and have something like that. So I'd say I'm pretty lucky to have the staff that I do, and that we can cohesively work together and trust each other for the general goal,
That's
of
amazing.
what we're all trying to accomplish.
If you are new to reptile keeping, then you are probably being bulldozed over with a tsunami of information. What species should you get? How should they be fed? What lighting do you need? What enclosure do you need? There is so much information to process as a new keeper, it can be incredibly overwhelming. That's why I want to tell you more about ZooMed's Education Center. You can head to zoomed.com for a growing resource of information for beginning reptile and specialized pet caregivers. You'll find care guides for beginner species, as well as how to select the appropriate lighting and heating, which is a crucial element to keeping reptiles properly. The lighting and UVB section is rich with helpful resources, both written and in video format, including the Power of the Sun video series that ZooMed did a few years ago, which is an incredibly helpful series for folks who are just getting into understanding reptile lighting. You can also sign up for the UVB reminder newsletter, which will prompt you when it's time to change your bulbs. Now, if you own or manage a pet store, you're also going to want to know about ZooMed University, which is a free online training tool designed to help you train your staff to make sure they fully understand the unique care requirements for exotic pet care keeping, as well as how to pass that knowledge on to interested pet owners. Make sure to check out zoomed.com for more information. Well, and I think it's hard to necessarily conceptualize how much stress some of those moments during the coronavirus were for you. I'm sure that was just like a beside yourself type of stress, that it's just, in some ways you're like, I think we've alluded to before when we were having a phone call off the podcast, is more like faith that it's going to work out, but have absolutely no clue how it's going to happen, but just trying to
Yeah.
keep your head down and just get through it as best you can, but
Yeah.
without having any idea of how are you possibly going to get through this, and then it ends up working in the end.
Yeah. What coronavirus also taught me is a lot about how clients have expectations with when things around them are happening. This is a good example right now. Like, so we'll go back to coronavirus. Some people were working, getting paid, doing great. There were other people that were flat on their butt in a really bad position. And I was able to find, like, when we would have angry clients, it was always small orders, $20 orders, $30 orders, $35 orders. Very rarely, the people buying kits and XYZ, do we have a problem? And kind of what that told me was that it was the people that were really struggling just to get by with what they need. The expectation of what and the perception of what they are getting versus of what they think they're getting versus what they're getting needs to be impeccable. And that is another reason why, and on top of that, a fast turnaround time. The expectation with the consumer is you don't pay shipping and that it gets to you in at least 2 to 3 days. And that's because of the Amazon precedent, right?
Mhm.
So like if you deviate from that and you don't have that, a lot of times your client engagement, client retention really goes down the drain. And the coronavirus really taught me a lot about that, especially when the growth presented itself and we were unable to capitalize on it in the way that we should have. It still benefited the business a little bit, but long term, the growth didn't benefit us in the way that it should have. Now, other opportunities came and we got a completely different result and we executed and we grew from it, but it took a lot of failure and it took a lot of mistakes on my end. Um, and just trudging through that because after we got through that, then it was the sales tax headache and everything else. So it's always one thing after another is what I'm learning with my job.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's
Right when you
but
feel like things are stable, a new thing pops up.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so why don't we talk a little bit about the current challenges that now that you and many other businesses are having to deal with? And I feel like
Yeah.
this topic changes so often. I'm not even totally familiar with it just because I'm in
Yeah.
Canada as well. So, with Trump getting in, obviously there was the tariffs talk with against China and Canada too, and other countries. And we had a phone call maybe like a month and a half ago, and you were just telling me like how insanely difficult this is going to be, and then how some ideas that you're going to hopefully kind of get through it. As far as your stress level when those tariffs started coming in, was it comparable to COVID, or is it even worse or similar?
It almost broke my brain. My brain broke twice in my career here from situations that like I couldn't focus. My brain was just empty and it took like weeks to get out of it. This was very similar to that. The biggest thing is if you see behind me, this is my battle board. Every single one of my vendors is back here. And then to the left, you can see the consistent tariff rates.
Mm.
I have 96 vendors. Those 96 vendors, 86 of them are impacted by tariffs that were at that point between 40% and 265%. After doing a deep audit of looking at, my sources and X, Y, and Z, one of the highlights of my career is some of the relationships that I've been able to establish with some of my overseas manufacturers. Working with my manufacturers in China, they are amazing. They send me Christmas gifts. They send me pictures of them in their factory thanking me for their business. A lot of what I hear people talk about on the internet about their culture seems to be very wrong to me. I'm not an expert, okay? I've never been there. But I know with my business interactions with them, it's always a very high level of respect down to business communication. That's how I am. I'm a very direct, blunt, down to the point type of guy. And that gets me in trouble sometimes. But with these guys, it has been a really solid conversation. We were able to really talk about the challenges. So one of my main manufacturers, which is my lights, it pretty much made it so I can't bring in any of my LEDs, any of my fixtures. I can't bring in any of my dyno decor. I can't bring in any of my bowls. I'm looking at my cork bark going up by 40%
Can you
gross
explain
on
to
it
people
already.
why can't you bring it in? For those who are like, I don't understand the
Okay,
tariffs at all.
so
Maybe just
so
explain what it's like as a
of
business
course.
owner.
So because my business is so niche, I import from a lot of countries. I get products from New Zealand. I get products from Colombia. I get products from Canada. I get products from China. I get products from Portugal. Soon I'm going to be getting spag moss from Chile. And when I'm getting these products and we're getting a whole container, like we're literally loading up a 54-foot container, pallet to product. We put it on a boat. The boat comes to the port and I get it done. During coronavirus, the ship a container, it's normally about 3,000 US dollars. And then you have your intermodal, and then and whatever taxes are going to be on top of that. The Trump tax from his first term was always 20%. when I was getting stuff in from China, you can expect a 20% tax rate on top of it, just the way it is. Cool, I can deal with 20%. That's really not that bad. $20,000 for a $100,000 order. You spread that out a course of 10,000 units. It's really not that much of an increase to the consumer because let's be real, the businesses don't pay for it. The businesses pay for it, but there isn't a single business unless you're a large conglomerate that can sit there and eat 50% of your profit and be happy with a 10% markup. I'm not in this business for a 10% markup, dude. So during coronavirus, that shipping went to $12,000 to $20,000 for a container.
Over the three.
Over Corona, yeah. Right now, what we're dealing with now is a lack of containers. At least I've been trying to get my container of cork bark to leave Portugal for over a month now. They just can't find a freaking container. We finally got one. It's now shipping and loaded at the end of the month. I already know the current tariff on the EU is 40%. That cork container, it's a pretty big order. I'm probably going to get hit 40% of $30,000. So I already know I'm going to have to pay that. The shipping on my container, the last shipment was only $2,000. This shipment, it's $5,000. And then on top of that, I'm going to have to pay intermodal. But because of the tariff on petroleum products, a lot of those intermodal use those materials. So my intermodal to pick the container and demerge it from port went from about $600 to $2,000. And this doesn't even include my stuff from China. So right now I have about $100,000 in LEDs coming. I already know I'm going to get a $60,000 tax bill when those containers arrive. When he first implemented these containers or implemented these tariffs, I already placed a large spag moss order. I had a $10,000 spag moss order on a container coming that was picked up on the 9th. Okay, so this was before he enacted the tariffs. A week later, after this is on the water, the tariffs were enacted. I was going to get hit with a $30,000 tariff bill for $10,000 order of moss.
Because it was at like the 200% tariff at that point.
Yep. But because it hit the water, one day before the tariffs were enacted, I didn't have to pay tariffs on it. When it came in, I just cleared it by one day.
And
now,
I remember you were telling me before when we were on a call that it's so just say you missed it and then you had to pay that $30,000. You can't just leave the container at the port and say,
"Oh my God, no, you'll get in so much trouble." No, dude, you have to pay it. A good example, close business associate of mine. I know they had over $250,000 of electronics in a container. And it was already on the water. And can you do 240% of 200,000 or around $250,000? It's over almost $1 million. Or sorry, it's over $500,000. I'm not good at online math or top head math.
Yeah,
but that would have been the tariff bill if he wasn't able to get that transferred over to come at another time. My one manufacturer in China, she saw this coming a while ago, so they already have a factory in Indonesia that they're setting up and getting done. So my massive order that is coming after this one that I'll probably pay for the beginning of Q3, that's going to be from Indonesia. But the caveat from that is it takes 6 months. So you have to pay all this money and wait 6 months, still pay tariffs and not know what the tariff is going to be because Indonesia right now is 20%, if I'm not mistaken. So right now, 20%, but he could change. This dude could change his mind tomorrow and put it to 300%, and then boom, I'm stuck with a 300% tariff on products that I already paid for and ordered when it was a 20% tariff rate. So what we are dealing with as small business owners, it is impossible to plan. It is impossible to budget, and this impacts everything. You're looking at UVB, that all that comes from Germany. There's a tariff on that too. A lot of it is made in Germany, processed in China to United States. Some of them come right from Germany to United States or right to Europe. It's different for everybody. But everything, and I was explaining this to, when I had to go over this with my staff, 2 months ago, I straight told them that if this sticks and it continues the way it is, there's going to be massive price increases. There's going to be layoffs. We're not going to be able to get UVB bulbs. We're not going to be able to get heat bulbs. A 12-inch LED fixture is going to cost $85. This is the reality of what is happening. So this is what we need to do as a business to make sure we're prepared. And I've been doing little things here and there to make sure that we're ready for when those things happen. And one of my biggest challenges I'm dealing with right now are my bags. I watched my printed bags go from 70 cents a bag to $2 a bag.
Mm.
My bag order is normally between $7,000 and $9,000. My last bag order was 29,000.
Wow.
And that's just for packaging. And that was because I was forced to go to a United States supplier. But the ridiculous thing about it is all the material that is created for those products comes from China.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you get an American supplier, it doesn't matter. You still are getting that ridiculous price increase. And it's the same, and it's the exact same thing that we were dealing with. Also, besides the bags, when you're looking at some of your other consumables, again, like your UVB bulbs and your heat bulbs, because we aren't going to see the effects of these tariffs just yet. I literally just had a conversation with my inventory guy this morning. He goes, we need to do a central order, but everything we need, they're out of, and they've been out of stock on that for over a month and a half. I said, Will, I told you 60 days ago, it's going to take around 3 months to start seeing these websites dry up because these importers aren't going to bring in containers of light bulbs and pay a ridiculous tariff on it. So now the industry is going to start seeing some of these changes with products not being available, things, or a freaking heat bulb that used to be $12 is now $25.
Mm-hmm.
And it isn't the people like me that are going to suffer right away. I'm really lucky that I have proprietary products. The majority of what I sell is proprietary with the addendums from other vendors that go well with what I do. But when you look at small mom and pop pet shops, dude, that rely on the Central Pet Hagen business model, that they just go on these websites, order all the reptile supplies that those websites carry, and that's how they stock their store. Like, you know what I'm talking about. You go into most pet stores, it's all the same stuff.
Yeah.
Those are the businesses that die. Those are the
businesses wholesalers are just not going to be able to
literally living off a 20% profit margin.
Yeah.
Now they're raising the prices and creating a smaller profit margin, which, Hagen has been distributing their own products for over 50 years. They just had to drop down to a middleman to distribute their products because they couldn't figure out shipping because it was bankrupting them. And it was really upsetting because Hagen is a great brand. It is a great brand, but it's these little trickling effects that we're finally going to start seeing from the actions of the current administration 90 days ago. Mm-hmm. And right now, I have a bunch of products on the water and I'm just crossing my fingers. I have the money set aside, but I'm crossing the fingers that roughly the $70,000 to $80,000 in cash that I'm going to need to cover these tariffs, that I don't have to pay it out. That I'm hoping that it's just not going to matter. They're going to pass it and blah, blah, blah. But it changes different every day. It is literally different every single day. It's impossible to plan. And that is what really got me down. I take pride in being a problem solver. That is my strongest attribute as an entrepreneur, is my ability to problem solve and work my way out of issues. But it is completely out of my control. There's nothing I can do about it. All I can do is try to innovate new products, find different sources. And that's why I went to the bags. I had to move all of my printed bags to a United States manufacturer, but watched my cost of sale my cost of goods sold increased by over 30% because of one item. And then I was looking at, well, I can only sell a bag of dirt for so much. What happens if I literally get outpriced? That instead of it costing me X amount of money to manufacture this bag of dirt, it's so much money that I won't be able to sell it at a reasonable price to move the numbers I need to maintain my revenue streams, right? And that is what was getting me the most, because I was just looking at everything, like everything just was being affected, all of my vendors. And I'm just like, Like, what are we supposed to do when, we want to sell a full bioactive kit to somebody, but we can't give them UVB, we can't give them heat bulbs,
Right.
or, our industry is just going to get priced out because that's to me what's going to happen first. First, we're going to start seeing shortages of products, right? If these stick and continue, which looks like they're not freaking going anywhere, what you're going to see is those people during the coronavirus that were spending $20, $30, $40 orders because that's likely what they had, right? You're going to start seeing people in our industry get priced out of
Yeah.
the industry because they're not going to pay 80, $90 for a 12-inch LED bulb. And what frustrates me most about the LEDs is they want to put all these tariffs on all these components. We want to manufacture the LEDs in the United States. I'm all for United States manufacturing, but the element that powers the diode is only found in China.
Mm.
Yeah. And then at the same time, you have the Department of Energy passing a law to make basically all reptile bulbs unusable and unsellable, which they've now fixed. But think about that combined. We're going to set the industry that you can only use LEDs and energy efficient bulbs. We're going to tariff this material coming from China because we don't want you to do business with China, but we're going to set it so that way this is the only thing that you can use.
Yeah.
Because
And
from
so
my
is it the
understanding,
phosphorus or what's the element?
I wish I could. I don't.
Okay.
I'm so
It,
sorry.
no,
This
no,
is
no, that's
something
all.
I should know.
No, 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 that's all good. But just so listeners understand, there's an element that whatever it may be, whatever it is mined and found in China, and that they don't
Yes.
work without that coating or whatever it's needed to
Like
make
like
the
with
LED
every
operate.
piece that they get. Yes. That
Yeah.
is what was how I like fully understood it.
So no matter
Uh,
what, there's going to be an import of something if we were going to be manufacturing LEDs stateside. The best part about providing high quality reptile husbandry is you get to develop a long-term relationship with your animal. Meet Jackson, my 18-year-old crested gecko. Jackson lives on the Bio Dude's Terrafauna substrate, which is one of their substrates that's specifically designed for warm biomes and humidity spikes. Like all other Bio Dude substrates, it contains organic content to help support the plant life in Jackson's vivarium. It also holds moisture very well, which means humidity is never an issue, even in my dry climate. Another favorite of mine is the Bio Dude's Bug Grub. This is a supplement powder made from natural ingredients like carrots, beets, spirulina, oats, and potatoes. Everybody knows how important gut-loading feeder insects is, and this simplifies it for me and allows me to be confident when I feed both Jackson and my tarantulas that they're getting the nutrients they need to thrive. Also, if you have a lot of babies right now, this is a great way to help fortify the diets of neonatal reptiles. The Bio Dude has a ton of great educational content on both his YouTube channel and the website, all about bioactive care, and it's just one of those brands that's doing their part to push herpeticulture into a positive direction and give reptile keeping a better name.
yeah, dude. And then during all of this time, I was close to bringing on a business partner. I'm gonna be honest, bro. This guy I've known for 14 years. Had him at my house, staying with my house, meeting all my staff, spending time with my daughter, who's 4.5. And then I get a call one day. This guy was arrested for child pornography.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and this was at the same time as all of this is happening. And this guy had one-on-one contact with my daughter and all this other stuff. So on top of that, I was dealing with that. I had to take her to the FBI to get interviewed. That was the second instance in my career that my brain literally broke. It
Wow.
literally broke it. I couldn't function. I couldn't do my job. I couldn't communicate. I was just in like this
Haze.
stasis of blackness that I couldn't think, I couldn't concentrate, I couldn't do anything while I'm watching my suppliers tell me they can't get my stuff. I'm watching all my costs freaking skyrocket, looking at how I'm going to be able to do this. And this is all in the past 8 months. So, like, you know, I'm really proud that, like, obviously it's okay, right? That person's where they deserve to be. But, like, that's how close I was. Like, dude, my lawyer was literally going to give him an offer letter in a week to move his
Wow.
family down. It completely broke my brain. And then I had to bring my staff together and explain to them, hey, by the way, the guy that was here for a week, the guy that met with you one on one, the guy that we all went out to dinner with, X, Y, and Z, by the way, this happened. and now I have to deal with this on top of everything else. So please just give me some space while I
Wow.
figure this out. Yeah.
That
But
is wild.
yeah, dude, it was something else, but at the same time, after we got through, after my wife and I like got through that, my personal things aside, I was really able to put my head in these trenches and really start formulating a plan on how BioDude is going to survive. And I can tell you, I closed quarter two this year, the best quarter I've ever had, even during Corona, which I was able to give all of my staff like a really solid bonus too, which I
Amazing.
haven't been able to afford to do in a while. So like that made me really happy. And we were able to execute and keep our shipping times within a day, day and a half. I was able to get the products that I didn't think I was going to be able to get, at least an order going. I was able to bulk order a lot of my woods, my grapevine, my spider wood, my Malaysian driftwood, because they put a 40 of Sri Lanka is a 44% tariff. Guess where almost a lot of, and Vietnam, guess where a lot of your woods come from? Your exotic woods. They come from Malaysia, Sri Lanka, and Vietnam. Your
Mm.
spider wood, your Mopani wood, that comes from Africa. All that stuff was coming in way more, is going to be coming in way more expensive. So I was just like, okay, we're going to order 6 months supply of everything. And that's essentially like part of the things that we did to continue to prepare for what, in my opinion, is going to be a massive industry shortage of some of the most common things that we were doing. And then I looked at a lot of my vendors, and some of the vendors I was like middleman with, I I did some digging and figured out where they were importing from and was like, I really love you guys, but I got to get my costs down. I
Hmm.
did that with a lot of my wood, like my grapevine, my ghost wood, my spider wood. I did that with some of my substrate ingredients. And that really played a huge role. And then, of course, my staff. I have staff coming to me with my shipping guy just made his own phase 22 pack, or scary, my guy who's in charge of all my animals, he's made a homemade phase 22 pack out of coconut oil. So now we're gonna be trying to try to make little shipping packs so we don't have to pay for them and increase our packaging costs.
Mm.
That's just a little example of all the like a lot of my staff stepping up, understanding the direness of this situation in our economy, and
Well,
understanding that that this business, it could fail at if things go south for a really long time. And that has really played to us having honestly a really decent quarter one, but a really, really strong quarter two when, truth be told, when I was going into quarter two, the tariffs were announced, that stuff happened with the guy, and some of the other things that I was just trying to figure out. It is a testament to all of us here, and our determination and grit. And I probably couldn't be more thrilled with them, to be
yeah,
honest.
yeah. Well, that's what I love about small business is that if you find the right people, they're in it just as much as the owner and they want to see the success. And then they reap the benefits as well. Like you said, now there's health benefits and life insurance and 401k and those sort of things because they did the grinding as well and they get to take some responsibility for that, which I think
Yep.
is amazing. So you'd mentioned some weight. Like, I mean, it's incredible that quarter two was so great for you. And I know that you also have, well, I guess I'll first say too, the when you have these sort of business defining things change that are totally outside of your control, it's so easy to get frustrated and upset and depressed about it. But it sounds like there's been some opportunities that you've been able to exploit and have this great quarter two. But I know we were talking before you have some other ideas as well. I don't know how many of
I
those you're ready
do.
to share or some things that you're
Absolutely.
working on. Yes.
I'll
So
share
tell
a
us
couple.
what you're thinking about as far as like what are some things that you can do that are totally tariff free essentially.
Yeah, so one of the things that I was looking at is consumables. Consumables bring customers back to your store. Reusable items that they need to use a couple times, or they need to like, hey, I need to reorder this,
Hmm.
like Pangea food, for example. Um, so a lot of people know this about me. Like, I am an avid fisherman. Like, I am a saltwater fisherman. I hope to be a captain when I'm done with Bio Dude and do like tours, whatever ocean I'm going to be around when I'm older. And I'm not bad at it. And I take home fish a lot. That's what we primarily eat in my house because I catch it and I know where it comes from. And I know it's clean. And I'm an advocate of using the whole critter. So I'll clean the fish and I'll boil it and get all the innards and stuff and give that to my dogs, my cat. And then I'm left with the head and the skeleton and the fins. I put that in a composter and I compost the full fish. And what I've been doing is creating a composted fish recipe. In-house, we've been using speckled trout, black drum, redfish, flounder, sheep's head, and giving that to our isopods.
Mm.
And they go absolutely crazy. But the best part about it is it's also a substrate additive that is very, very high in nitrogen, high in potassium, and extremely high in calcium, which is 100% organic, 100% natural because it's coming from the carcasses of the fish. So what I did was I'm trying to source a commercial composter. I found a couple. They're a couple $1,000s. I'm also trying to source a freeze dryer. They're a lot more expensive, and there's a lot of work that goes into maintaining a freeze dryer. So I have to create an SOP for that, so that way my investment just doesn't go down the drain.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm planning on doing was I found a good source to be able to get mullet. So if you know what a mullet fish is,
Are those the little
it's
small saltwater fish
little
or?
small saltwater fish that travel in shoals. They're a
Mm.
keystone species in a lot of ecosystems. But a lot of bait shops sell them as bait. You buy a whole bunch of them on ice, but they can only keep them a specific amount of time and they throw them away. So what I'm trying to do is get with the relationships I've made with some of the business owners that sell tackle and bait down here was, okay, let's work out a deal when you get me 400 pounds of mullet. Okay. And then I'm going to take that mullet, I'm going to compost it. And then I'm going to sell that mullet as custodian chow protein. So it'll have a complete guaranteed analysis. It'll have an expiration date, use by date, and it also will go as a soil additive. And then I'm going to use the freeze dryer to freeze dry peas and then cover those peas with organic bee pollen
Mm.
and then use that as the custodian chow veggie. So, because we know that isopods love bee pollen and we know they love freeze dried peas. But we've been testing this composted fish now for over 8 months. And I can tell you that it has completely changed our game with being in the like supplying isopods to people because we could not keep up. But now our cultures are booming and everything's going great. And am really like making sure that we're providing that well-roundedness of the diet to them.
Mm.
So my hope is to release the new consumable custodian chow protein, custodian chow veggie, and have the protein be specifically from sustainably and ethically sourced mullet. That
So
can
what format? What does it look like? Is it a
it
pellet or is
literally
it a powder?
it looks like a dirt powder with tiny chunks of bone and other dense materials. It's just the fish that is turned into a really good, easy to eat powder. If you look at, I'm trying to think of a comparable thing that it would look at. Have you ever seen the Bug Burger by Repashy? How it's
Yes. Yeah.
extremely
Yeah.
granular and bumpy. It looks like that, but just imagine a couple large pieces of calcium that looks like a calcium bone, but like they're maybe half the size of your pinky nail
Okay.
mixed up within it. And that's exactly what it looks like.
And what about smell?
Um, the smell, it smells like decomposed. It smells fishy. I'm not gonna lie. We found that a teaspoon put into a powder blue habitat is gone in 20 minutes with about 1,000 specimens in there.
Wow.
Yeah,
It makes sense. I mean,
they
isopod evolutionary
destroy
history
it.
comes from the water, right? They come from the ocean. They're sort of like
Yeah,
their evolutionary history has them eating dead fish. So
yeah,
it makes sense.
yeah. And alive animals too, sometimes if they're small enough, it can wrap around them.
Right.
So like as basic and dumb as that sounds, that's something that I've been working on for a while and I haven't released it yet just because like I am working out storage, making sure like
Mm.
I fully understand what shelf life is. I don't want you to open that up and have mold in there. So I got to see if I got to use a silica packet on if it's really humid outside, is that going to matter? So right now I'm in like the packaging phase of getting that figured out. So it might not be huge, but to me, like that's really exciting because it's just something that I thought of and something that I know works. And my whole business is just sharing what I like. and what
Yeah.
I think works for me. So I hope it works for you. So that's kind of what we're going with. That's one of them. Because the clay balls come from Denmark and China. Obviously there are big tariffs on those right now, and people are only going to pay so much for drainage layer. So I've already like have been talking to Denmark about bringing in a container, but it's gonna be crazy. The shipping and the tariffs are more than the product.
Right.
So I'm like, what is going to be another good alternate to Lico? So I found a plant in California that takes volcanic rock and breaks these pieces of volcanic rock into small size of your thumbnail pieces. That's pumice.
Mm.
Pumice is an extremely good filter medium. So you can also use it as a drainage layer. So we can get it in black and we can get it in like brick red. So right now I'm trying to ascertain container quantities, or 10 pallet quantities, give or take, of this material to substitute the Leica when inevitably a $30 bag of Leica jumps to 70.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to charge a customer 19.99 for a bag of Leica. Like I'm not gonna do that. Right now, we can still get it. Right now, it's okay because everything in there that's available from Hydro Farm and some of these other places that you get it, they still have
A huge
pre-tariff
quantity.
product.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's when it runs out. And again, it's just going to be a slow crawl, right?
We're just going to
But
see things
it,
drop off and suddenly spike in price. Like one day you'll go to a website and you go, okay, LEDs have tripled or Leica has tripled or
yeah,
whatever it is.
100%. And dude, I could be completely wrong about my assumptions, but this is how those are some of the things that I've been doing to position us, in a better light. We came up with more isopod kits. We found this company called Tarantula Cribs, which is amazing. Richard
Mm-hmm.
Stewart, like you gotta check these guys out. And then the owner came to me at Tinley when I was there, talked to him, and now we're selling, their amazing habitats. We know they come from China. So we're enjoying that price point as long as we can because we know a 3 by 3 by 6 little cube that we're selling for $26, we are not going to be able to sell it for 40. And that's something that we're bracing ourselves for and hope that doesn't happen. But like we've been able to create isopod kits. We've been able with like have the little containers. I have been working, I'm about to close out a drop shipping deal with Snake Discovery to put my substrates and stuff on their website and we ship for them.
Mm.
I'm working with Rich at Reptile Basics and selling some of his cages and some of his habitats as drop shipping on my website. So I've opened up other types of revenue streams that some of the people that I've worked with in my career that we can benefit each other. And that this whole situation, I've been really broadening my horizons. One of the biggest criticisms I've gotten is I'm kind of like the Sasquatch. I tend to hide. You don't really see me at a lot of shows. I tend to stay in the background and do what I do. That's my personality. That's how I am. And, I didn't really talk to a lot of people, but just this past 2 quarters, I've been talking to Josh at Josh's Frogs. Never did that. I was always afraid to talk to this person because I'm like, well, I don't really trust this person. But after I spoke with him, I had a really strong respect of just actually, instead of just assuming, having an open mind. I did that with Matt at Pangea, spoke with him. I spoke with a lot of different people that would be considered competitors of mine that I like talk to about the problems I'm having, and they were able to help give me solutions and vice versa. And if you would have asked me 3 years ago to do that, I would have been like, no,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely not. Just
Mm-hmm.
because that was again, you level up as you in your entrepreneurial career. And this was one of those things that forced me to be like, okay, maybe some of the things you're hearing or some of the stuff that you're dealing with isn't that big of a deal. Maybe go in with an open mind and form your own opinion instead of just hijacking others with what their experiences were. And that has been a big deal for me this year. And, I hope to continue to elaborate and strengthen those relationships because I learn a lot from them, especially Rich. Rich has been paramount of information for me too, man. The dude's the man, and he's been in this game longer than I've been alive.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be able to have resources like that available to you. You know, Robin at Redline Shipping, he checks in with me once a month, man. And if you guys want to support, Redline Shipping, man, they're a great company. Robin and his crew are amazing. And Robin's been in this industry supporting everybody for years, years and years dedicating his life to supporting others that are in this industry, building them up, introducing people to people they typically wouldn't have access to. And, again, having those types of resources available to me really helped me get through some of the struggles that I've been talking about these past 8 months.
That's amazing. Well, it's there's enough to go around in many sense, and the be able to collaborate with other businesses and other brands is just going to help make everybody better. It's not going to really take away from anything, and you guys can continue to grow. Like you said, it's going to become a very difficult time in the next year or two for some of these companies, some of these small pet stores, and people that are running off of inventory that they've had for a while. Once those run out, it's gonna the landscape of things are gonna change, and I think even just talking about like the trench the cubes that you could sell, it's not like when you hit a certain price point, they just no longer sell. Like those types of things are just going to be a major problem. So there's going to have to be a lot of you have to be dynamic and fluid with the way things are, and
Yep.
I have a feeling that you'll get through it without any issues just because of how good of a problem solver you are, but it's still a scary place to be.
100%. And like we did PlantCon this year, for example, I took my booth at the same weekend as Reptilian Nation, and we did a plant show. We killed it. Whole new demographic, whole different types of things. And I couldn't be more proud of my staff for making sure that we did 2 shows in one weekend. We turned a profit on both of those shows. And those are the things that I'm really lucky to, again, the support, but that we were able to go outside our box, try something new, and it benefited the business. That was a big deal. I just I like a challenge. I'm not gonna lie. I like the challenge. I just sometimes wish the challenges were always in my control,
Yeah.
which isn't always going to be the case. So
Well, you're doing an amazing job with it, and I think that's why I love conversations like this, because it gives people behind the curtain look. And we're so used to just seeing Bio Dude. You see the nice, clean logo and great website, and everybody's familiar with the products, but you don't realize how much like scurrying and stress goes on in the background for us to just be able to go to the website and click buy, and for it to show up at your door a couple days later. There's a lot, and I hope that people just. It makes me, and I'm sure the listeners as well, appreciate people like yourself and appreciate the brand. And yeah, you could go buy a bag of dirt from Home Depot and then have a garden millipede breakout in your enclosure and by saving $20. But when they hear a story like yourself, it's like, okay, well, why not support the brands that are doing the thing that are specifically designed for what we need it for, which is animal husbandry and caring for plants and whatnot. I think that's just so important. You do have a storefront, right? Can you just
I do.
let us
Yeah, we have a
know,
storefront attached to my warehouse.
Okay.
And I've been looking at moving my store to like a better location that isn't just back attached to my warehouse. It's about 50K a month to get a good spot in Houston with the amount of space I need. Yeah. After like what that includes my labor, trash, electric, gas, property tax, insurance, and then on top whatever repairs that you're going to need. And then of course maintaining it. Typically when I was finding you're going to look around $20,000 a month just with the triple net, property tax, insurance, rent, and that doesn't benefit you. It just expenses out. You don't get any depreciation. You don't get anything, and it feels like a giant scam. So like now that like my building's paid off, like my wife and I are just trying to recoup what we paid out. We're already halfway there. We've already recouped half of what we spent to pay off the building in like 6 months. So my goal, if I can recoup the entire amount we paid off 6 months, that I'm finally going to be comfortable enough to be like, okay, let's take some money and let's find us either a new building that can have just my point of sale and my business offices there, and then keep this building in my portfolio. Because also during all of that mess, I found out I needed a whole new roof and that was like $50,000, and then we had to do a whole bunch of other stuff to it. So like now that my building has a new roof and I put all these improvements on it, like it's smart to keep it in my business's financial portfolio. So my hope was to, with the store being gone, I can expand the warehouses, expand my manufacturing, have the other business or have the other location be my storefront and business administration office. Or, just say, heck with it, get another loan, plan to pay that loan off in 5 years and get, a building that is built specifically for me. That has my warehouse, my shipping, my administration, and my point of sale. But when you do that, you're looking at over $3 million. And
Yeah.
I gotta be honest, man, I don't know if I want to personally guarantee a $3 million loan because right now, the absolute worst would happen. The worst would happen to Bio Dude. I could sell my building, I could sell my assets, and my wife and my daughter would be okay. Like we would have some money from the failure instead of if you fail and you have a loan,
You're bankrupt.
that bank is gonna the bank is gonna just destroy you. And I dealt with that for 7 years of having a massive $700,000 bill, $700,000 loan hanging over my head. But the most successful entrepreneurs aren't afraid of that. They take that and use it as will to continually grind, improve, and make more money.
Yeah.
And leverage that building in your favor. So worst case scenario, if you have to sell it, you're hopefully selling it for more than what you paid for it from appreciation. And if there's anything I learned about Texas and commercial buildings and homes is they appreciate like crazy. And that is something that I'm also learning with how all that stuff goes. So it's just what I have to come to terms with is what is my comfort level with risk given my current situation with family. Because when
Yes.
I got this building, I did not have a little one. It was just me and my wife. But now
It
that,
redefines it.
yeah, but now that, there's a little bit more to it, I have to be a little bit more guarded.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, with all the stuff going on right now, makes me uneasy to want to commit to something that large, given the fact that I can't even properly forecast how much it's going to cost to import the majority of my products.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it makes more sense to probably stabilize how you are now, and you do have a storefront, so people
Yep.
can, as it is, come by and is there regular hours, or maybe if anybody's in that area, maybe because I'm sure there's people that would love to come see the store if they've not already. Maybe just give us those details.
Sure. We're open Monday through Saturday. So Monday through Friday, we are open at 9. We close at 4. So, and then Saturday, we're open at 10. We close at 5. I'm actually relooking at my hours because it's hard for the working person to get here during our hours. But what inhibited me before was staffing. So in the future, I'm hoping mid quarter three, so like a month from now, I'm going to be opening up a discussion with my operations lead about opening up on Sundays. We just appointed 2 new key holders.
Mhm.
So I'm getting them trained with everything the next month and a half. And then once they're fluent, we can talk about having Sunday hours, extending our weekday hours to be open till 6, and then probably close on a Tuesday or a Wednesday in the middle of the week. That gives us an opportunity to restock well, clean. Because the biggest thing when you walk into my store, there's no smell. You don't smell feeders, you don't smell crickets, there's no dead plants in the tanks. It's clean, it's organized, it's bright, it's vibrant. That's the whole goal, right? Is to be different. And that's something that as long as we can continue to maintain those standards, that I'm hoping to be able to do that. My problem is I just don't want to work on Sunday. Like I just don't want to do it. And
Yeah,
if I have somebody call out, guess who's the one that has to go in?
you're driving in. Yeah,
Yeah. And Sundays is the day like I spend with my wife, I spent with Carolyn. So like those days are pretty
you
important
got to
to me.
protect
So
those. Yeah,
yeah. So, I'm just kind of, balance like as you can obviously see, like I balance everything, like cause and effect of the decisions for a little bit longer than I probably should. So that's kind of what I'm working on for the store. I appreciate you doing the shout out for that too.
Oh yeah, no, that's awesome. And like I said, this whole story is, I think, so important for people to hear, just because of how much of a challenge these sort of things are. Like we sort of take it for granted from a consumer point of view. Is there anything else you want to mention before we wrap up the show? I think we covered a lot here, and I really want to.
And I'm sorry if I rambled, dude.
No, it's great.
Honestly, man, I just think A, I appreciate the opportunity immensely. B, I think I said it already. I worked with a lot of people in this industry, but like, not all, a lot of them don't always stick to the mission, and you've stuck to your mission, and I applaud that.
Thank you.
I think that's really awesome. And I just appreciate everybody's support, man. But for those of you that are listening, I only do so much. Okay. My name is behind the label, right? But like, I manage the money, I make decisions, and I work on the business. It is my staff that are making that difference that you guys are seeing. I'm just helping facilitate it. So like, I can't just take credit here. It's my staff members and the team that we have that really help create our functioning ecosystem here. And I'm really grateful for that. And I'm really grateful for, the support I get from my wife and stuff. But other than that, man, like I'm just taking a day at a time, controlling what I can control, and the things I can't control, accept it, and try to pivot in a way that when it negatively impacts my business, that I've already had something else to help circumvent that.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been doing. And I think I'm doing okay so far. So.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree, and big shout out to your staff. So for anybody who's maybe at a show and they see the Bio Dude table, they got to go say hi to the staff and say thank you for all the work that they do. So until we do another one, Josh, we'll absolutely have to have you back on again. This was a pleasure. I'll make sure all the Bio Dude social media and websites, everything's in the show notes for people.
Appreciate you, dude.
And yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Dylan. I really appreciate your time, brother. You have a great rest of your day and spend some quality time with the family, my dude.
All right, that is the end of that episode. Josh, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast and sharing that full story with us, and also being a supporter through sponsorship of the podcast. That really does help me out a lot, and I know the listeners do really appreciate your brand and product. But just to hear the stories behind how difficult some of these phases of, whether it's COVID or the tariffs or anything else, the amount of money that's needing to be thrown around just to keep the business running, I think will make a lot of people surprised. So listeners, I hope you enjoyed that episode, especially, if you're somebody that is more of an entrepreneur. We didn't really dig into the weeds of reptile care or amphibian care. We've done that a million times. I just really wanted this episode to focus on the nuts and bolts of what allows us to enjoy products so easily. And I think, like I said, we can kind of, as consumers, we're not really exposed to, and we shouldn't necessarily always be exposed to those things. We want to just have a simple experience to go to buy a product, but it's really nice to hear the type of work that must go on for you and I to just go onto the website and buy a bag of soil or a bag of substrate. So thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed it, make sure you share it far and wide on social media. Leave us a comment on Spotify or YouTube. If you're looking for any Bio Dude products, head to biodude.com. I'll make sure everything is in the links below, so you can just quickly go make a purchase if you are interested in buying something. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can head to animalsathome.ca and pick yourself up a sweater or t-shirt. Of course, $5 that's automatically get donated to the Amazon Rainforest Conservancy. You can also check us out at patreon.com/animalsathome and get early access to episodes. And of course, that just helps me keep the lights on and continue to pay for the production of the podcast. Thank you all for listening. Thanks again to Josh for jumping on the episode and telling your story. Thank you very much for Liam at Reptiles and Research for editing this episode. And I will catch you guys in the next one.